You bump a table. The coffee spills down your shirt. Instantly, a visceral wave of heat hits your chest, and you feel certain that every single person in this cafe watched you do it. Psychologists call this cognitive bias the spotlight effect. To measure this feeling of exposure, researchers designed a behavioral experiment to quantify how much the crowd is actually paying attention. In the landmark 2000 study, students were instructed to put on a t-shirt featuring Barry Manilow, a figure predetermined to be embarrassing to the college-aged group. They then had to briefly walk into a room occupied by their peers, stay a moment, and leave. After leaving the room, participants estimated that 50% of the observers noticed their humiliating shirt. But empirical verification revealed that only 25% actually recalled the image. This 2-to-1 ratio became the hallmark metric of the effect. This overestimation persists even when the social stimuli are positive or culturally esteemed. When participants wore shirts featuring culturally esteemed icons like Martin Luther King Jr., their average estimate of observer recall remained high at 48%. In reality, actual observer recall was frequently less than 20%. Human beings possess a fundamentally flawed perception of social reality, moving through the world assuming we are twice as visible as we truly are. If data proves no one is watching, why does the brain insist they are? It begins with the egocentric bias. Because you possess a front-row seat to your own internal narrative and mistakes, your actions feel significantly louder than the actions of others. You instinctively assume your subjective experience is an accurate reflection of objective reality. This illustrates the anchoring and adjustment heuristic. A social blunder sets your internal anchor artificially high on a visibility scale. You try adjusting downward, recognizing others are distracted, but adjustments from strong anchors are insufficient, leaving an inflated estimate of crowd attention. This is compounded by a second phenomenon, the illusion of transparency. This is the false belief that your internal physiological state, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, the cognitive blanking, is leaking out and is glaringly obvious to an audience that actually lacks the insight to detect it. We suffer a dual burden. We falsely believe the entire room is watching our external actions and simultaneously assume they can read our underlying panic. This isn't just a mental error, it's a byproduct of our physical brain hardware, specifically a network involved in introspective thought called the default mode network. Computing what other people are thinking requires routing signals across a complex sequence of brain regions. It's neurologically slow and metabolically expensive. Because accurately modeling an observer's mind is difficult, the brain defaults to the faster self model. This discrepancy hardwires the egocentric anchor. This rapid self-focus was mandatory for survival in early human history, when we lived in small, kin-based groups. In these tribes, social rejection or a loss of status frequently equated to a loss of resources, protection, and ultimately death. To prevent this catastrophic outcome, natural selection favored an overly sensitive threat detection system. The brain was wired to process social scrutiny, utilizing the exact same neural circuitry as physical somatic pain. The feeling of being watched is an evolutionary false alarm. It was designed to force behavioral conformity and keep early humans alive by making it far safer to assume you are being watched than to risk social exile. While the spotlight is hardwired, we can use clinical tools to manually override the brain's false alarms. The primary tool in cognitive behavioral therapy is the behavioral experiment. This involves intentionally triggering a mild, controlled social faux pas, like wearing mismatched, brightly colored socks right into a meeting. By gathering hard, external data that disconfirms your fears, you provide a corrective experience for the brain. You prove to your nervous system that catastrophic social predictions simply do not materialize. We can also starve the spotlight of resources through task concentration training. Instead of monitoring your own symptoms, you actively force your sensory focus outward onto the environment or the mechanics of the task. By externalizing your attention, the self-monitoring schema naturally collapses. This aligns with the Stoic dichotomy of control, the acceptance that observer judgment is an external factor entirely outside your control and therefore irrelevant to your inner peace. Simply learning the academic mechanics of the spotlight effect provides a measurable increase in confidence. Research at Cornell University found that understanding these biases makes individuals feel less nervous in performance situations. Everyone else is similarly occupied by their own internal stage. When you accept that the crowd is generally indifferent, you gain the capacity to fail or succeed without the weight of a phantom audience. Try a behavioral experiment today. Make a harmless mistake on purpose,